Hello, good evening. This is U.S. Immigration Attorney Sharifa Tharpe. I am running behind, but I still have to come and spend some time with you. I am going to have a great topic, and I'm still going to take your questions here on YouTube as well as TikTok. So go ahead, put your questions in the comments. My topic today is going to be, are you still a permanent resident after your 2-year green card expires? Yes, there is something called a 2-year green card. It's called conditional permanent residence. And usually conditional permanent residence happens in two cases, but I'm going to specifically talk about the marriage-based 2-year green card. There's also the investment green card based one, where they have to see that you've invested fully over the 2-year period before they give the 10-year permanent residence. But in this case, I'm going to be talking about the 2-year green card when it comes on to permanent residence through marriage. Now, if you have been married to your US citizen or legal permanent resident, spouse or spouse, a spouse under 2 years, so for less than 2 years, you're going to receive the 2-year permanent residence. And what that means is that you're sort of in a probationary period. You can do everything that a permanent resident can do. You can work freely. You can move throughout the United States. You have all the rights of a regular permanent resident. It's just that when it comes on to 90 days before the expiration of your 2-year permanent resident card, you're going to need to apply to get the 10-year permanent residence placed on it. Thanks so much for the love. I appreciate it. Now, with the main reason here that I want to answer the question, are you still a permanent resident, is because so many people that I've spoken to, they think that once the 2-year card expires, they're not able to work or they won't be able to travel because they have lost their status. Not true. What you will get after you apply, you meet the requirements and you meet the deadline to apply to remove the conditions on your 2-year permanent residence, is you'll get an extension letter. Right now, they're giving 2-year extensions. And even though your 2-year permanent resident card is expired at that point, that 2-year extension letter, along with your card, is still going to show that you continue to be a permanent resident. So you could travel with that as long as you have both the extension letter and the expired card. You could also use it to show that you continue to have the rights to work as a permanent resident in the United States. Now, your permanent residence will not be revoked until or unless an immigration judge says so. So what that means first is you must apply to remove the conditions on your permanent resident card. Don't miss the deadline on that. Make sure that you seek legal advice about your situation to make that happen. What happens is within 90 days before the card expires, you have to jointly file with the spouse, because what they want to see is they want to make sure that you have a bona fide marriage. Meaning, do you still have a real marriage? Do you continue to have a real marriage? And so they want to see evidence after you submitted your permanent residence up until the point that you reapply for a 10-year permanent resident. And so there are cases where the spouse is no longer available. You may be separated, they may be abusive, or they may be mistreating you, you may be divorced. In cases like that, you could apply for your own waiver to be able to go forward and remove the conditions on your 2-year green card to get the 10-year green card without the spouse. That means it's going to be your process. It's going to be dependent on you and the evidence that you present to the immigration service. Now, don't miss that deadline, but if you miss the deadline, don't give up. Make sure you get legal advice to fix your situation as soon as possible. If you miss the deadline, it's urgent at that point. But you do also risk getting a notice to appear in court. But even at that point, even if you miss the deadline, guess what? You continue to be a permanent resident. Even when if you ever, hopefully not, hopefully you do take the information I'm giving you here and you go forward, get legal advice and apply the right way. If your spouse isn't available, make sure that you have legal counsel help you through the process. But if you even if you don't meet the deadline or you get a notice to appear, you are still a permanent resident. It's not until you're before an immigration judge and the judge gives you a minute to present your case and they order you removed at that point. But best to deal with this early on so you don't have those issues. That's why I like to talk about the 2-year permanent residence and the fact that you shouldn't make the mistake of failing to renew because you don't have the spouse available. There are ways to get around that situation. All right, so now that I have talked about the going from a 2-year green card to a 10-year green card, I am going to take questions. Put your questions in the comments on YouTube and on TikTok, I'll answer. So Shulina, what is the form called? Can I file if my spouse has been here past the 180 days from Canada? So Shulina, definitely get legal advice. I wouldn't be able to specify what forms unless I fully understand what's going on in your case. Sounds like, there are complex facts involved. You need to make sure you get legal advice. All right, let's see here. I'm just gonna look here. So can I marry on an F1? So while I can't tell you specifically to marry because there may be additional considerations just depending on your situation, if you're here on an F1 and you want to get married, that is a possibility. There's nothing that's restricting you from getting married on an F1, but whether or not it's advisable is going to depend on your circumstances. What are your goals for the future? Who is your relative? What's their immigration status? That's what we'd have to figure out here. I have a question. Can high pregnancy, let's see here. So I think you may be asking, Crystal, you may be asking if high risk pregnancy is a basis for an expedite. It may be, but that could definitely be one of the bases to expedite an immigration application. But it's going to depend on your facts and how the immigration service looks at it. Can one file for their spouse who entered on a B1, B2? They have to wait the 90 days. So it's gonna depend. Should they wait the 90 days? It's gonna depend on what your situation is. Are you a US citizen or are you a permanent resident? Also, if you're a permanent resident, your spouse is out of status, they may not qualify at all for adjustment of status. So get unapologetic rebel faith. It sounds like you're in doubt here. When in doubt, get legal advice. Make sure, because this question is very specific, and in order to give you good legal advice and guidance, I'll need to determine exactly what's going on in your case. How long are they taking to approve the I-485 for marriage-based green card? So on average, it's 18 to 24 months. Keep in mind that that is an estimate based on my experience as an immigration attorney. It's not down to a science. That means that you may fall outside of that 18 to 24 months. It may be longer, maybe shorter, just depending on the facts in your case. How can a family get immigration status in the United States? It's going to come down to who do you qualify through? Do you qualify through a U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident spouse, a parent, a citizen's son or daughter, or a citizen's sibling in some cases? Also, what's your status? What's your age? What's your marital status? All of that is going to count to determine what kind of advice I'm going to give you about how a family member can help you to get status in the United States. So recently, Potomac service changed time frame. Do they change all the time? Unfortunately, that is the case, because processing times are usually, they're getting longer and longer, and that definitely could be the reason here. What do I do if my job keeps asking for my new permanent green card? So Gabby, if your job is asking and your extension letter has expired, that extension is serves as permanent residence. If it has that extension letter has expired, you can set an appointment at the USCIS and schedule time to go and get what's called an I-551 stamp. That stamp is going to allow you to get a stamp. Usually it's about a year long, that will allow you to continue to show that you're a permanent resident. All right, keep putting those questions in the comments. These are all great questions. Let me remind you that I'm also on YouTube. So I appreciate you joining and listening. Also, I want to hear your questions. So put those questions in the comments so I can answer. I meant a nuclear family. Can a friend help us get immigration status? So even a friend wouldn't be considered a part of the nuclear family. But no, friends, nieces, nephews, grandparents, those people cannot directly apply for you to get status in the United States. Thank you. Is there a number to call to set an appointment? Gabby, definitely. So it's 561-405-4889. Let me see here if I can put it here. So if you go to if you go to any of the videos on my page, you will be able to see the number on the videos. And I'm also going to put it in the comments. So it's 561-405-4889. The good thing about my firm here is that we're open up until 10:30 p.m. Mondays through Fridays. So you can call up until 10:30. There's going to be someone there. And even if you haven't called while a scheduling coordinator is available, there are after hours receptionists who are available to take your call and to help you pass that information along to the scheduling coordinators. What happens when you win the green card lottery, but you're in the United States? So that still may be good news. Now, if you're out of status, that may be problematic. We'd have to figure out how long you've been in the US and whether you can still complete the green card lottery process. But if you are here and you're maybe on F1 status or you're on another type of status, you may be able to adjust status here, depending on how far in you are in the process and whether you have a current priority date. So, or an immigrant visa number is available for you. So if you would like to sort out through all those possibilities and whether you qualify for adjustment of status through the green card lottery, give us a call. What is the process to obtain a work authorization if you visited on a tourist visa? I'm glad you asked that, because individuals on tourist visas cannot apply for their work permit. Work authorization is usually granted to certain individuals who are already applying for an immigration benefit or relief. For example, one may be applying for asylum, and after a while of the asylum application pending, they could get the work authorization. Or if you're applying through family or an employer and you Of course, you meet all the requirements for adjustment of status, you would get work authorization in that case as well. Is it possible to assist with migration even if the state I will go to is not the same state as you? Absolutely. I represent clients in all 50 states and the globe. So I'm not limited by borders or by state lines. As a US immigration attorney, remember you will likely be filing your application in a different state. And so that's what we do as US immigration attorneys. We have to work with USCIS offices, NVC offices, immigration offices, courts, and embassies all over the country and the world. So, not limited. Give us a call. We're very experienced with working with clients from a distance. Can you get work authorization right away if you marry a permanent resident and you're in the US on F1? It's not going to be right away. As a matter of fact, there is a backlog on work permits, and those are going 9 to 12 months right now. The shortest I've gotten so far is 3 months, which is great. So it could be as short as 3 months, but I would say the average you could be looking at is 9 months to 12 months. Do you assist with the work permit, Jojo Pink? That is what I do. That is one of the central things I do, is help with getting work permits as long as you qualify for the work permit. And you can call, schedule a consultation for us to determine whether you can get that work permit. But can they apply right away? So Danisha Bar, you'll have to apply for the petition, and whether it depends on who, you said here, can you get work authorization right away if you marry a permanent resident? Right now, because there's a current priority date, you would be able to, and you do have current status, you would be able to apply through your permanent resident spouse and apply for the work permit. I can't confirm that for you though. Remember, I'm not your attorney, and I'm not giving personal legal advice to anybody here. This is general information, so don't depend on the information. Just take it as knowledge and education. If you want personal legal advice about how you qualify and representation through your process, definitely give us a call and schedule that appointment. That's what the consultation is for. It's very important you follow through with that. All right. So this is great. Thank you. These are all great questions. I appreciate all these questions. Can you travel after filing the petition? You need to have a travel document. That's very important. And the travel document can allow you to travel. But I did talk about this yesterday. I know if you want to see past lives that I've done, you can always go to Instagram. It's The Immigration Attorney. And I talked about the fact that when you are traveling, you also have to keep in mind that you want to keep in mind your current status, what's going on with your application, and also, do you need additional documents to travel to the country you're going to? What is the average wait time if a father applies for a married daughter with kids? 12 years, and the father has to be a US citizen. So it does take a while. But what I am telling everyone now is that you should still consider submitting the petition, because by submitting a petition, you are still creating an option for yourself in the future. Yes, it may be 12 years down the line, but you never know what could happen. In addition to that, if another opportunity arises for you to come to the United States earlier, that petition may not affect the petition that you file if you have another opportunity to come to the US. It would just be canceled out. What is the petition? Petition is an application. So it's basically the application that is filed by your US citizen or legal permanent resident spouse, parent, sibling, or employer. And so it's an application to get the process started for you to get permanent residence. All right. So I appreciate all your questions, all the love. Thank you for asking your questions. I'm going over to Instagram right now. I'm The Immigration Attorney on Instagram, same as here. So join me over there where we can continue to have this conversation. So otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow at 4 p.m. I know I'm a little late today. But I will be back tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern Time to take your questions and also to bring a good topic. Also, call, schedule that consultation. Have a good one.